I just want to say that as more amazing, more impressive to me than what the women did here, the bravery that the women displayed and what they accomplished, is the depth of the violence and atrocities that just seem to be carried out by the men so frighteningly easily. I have this. I don't know a lot about these conflicts in Africa, and I'm sure that they, each one has its own particular circumstances and characteristics and so on. But it seems to me, my God, these stories with the machetes and the rape and the kids with the guns and those kinds of atrocities and the vehemence of it. That just boggles my mind every time. I don't know. You need me to do something with this?
No, I actually wanted to speak to that.
Oh, yeah.
I won't be on camera, but I'm the cameraman. That stuff, again, it amazes me, but there's an amazing... If you look at the American West, not the American West, but the settlers of this country moving west, there's I think Governor Clinton of New York who waged a terror war against the Indians. And my wife was brought up in upstate New York, and they took the kids down to the terror tree to show where the horrible savages tied the people to the tree and squeezed them till their eyes popped out. Well, they didn't learn until later, but I learned from a professor who taught there that was a retaliation for what the settlers were doing to the Indians, which was more horrendous. So I think it's this capability that happens whenever people decide that the people they're fighting against are not, they're not my people, they're not my person. I can kill them because they're not me. So whether it might be between Christians or Muslims or even people who are just a different ethnic group. So that's my take on it, is if you look at the atrocities on both sides, well, mainly because the white settlers, it's stunning, and you realize that there's still this capacity within humans. It may be that the West seems to have gone a little out of that, but I don't know. So that's my take on it.
I'm sure you're right. That there must be some element of
human nature.
Some element of you stop engaging with these people as other human beings. That has to be part of it, right? But how that happens, how does someone like Charles Taylor or what kind of circumstances pervade that whip that up and make that happen on such a large scale? I don't know. It's mind-boggling to me. I'm sorry to be stuck on the downer part of this. There was really, impressive and uplifting story here too about these incredibly brave women.
And how can a man like that, how can anybody watch that stuff happening and not know that it's wrong?
Yeah, well, I don't know the answer to that.
If one is to actually study Justice's upbringing when he was a kid, he was a very loose kid. Loose in the sense that where in his high school days, he ran for a position of president of the high school, and he was defeated. It will surprise you that he went to the reservoir and urinated in the reservoir because he was defeated. This is somebody who he grew up like that, and they took him from right in jail, for that mission. So it's like there was nothing but him that was so good of a human being. So he could. There's something they didn't show in this movie. Probably, but the war was here one day. During the process of the war in 2003, those former soldiers who were handicapped, though amputated, soldiers, they were too much because they used to go to his fence for their relief. And he commanded one of his generals to take them. They carried a truck, and all of the amputated soldiers came on the truck. Former soldiers came on the truck, and they said they were going to pay them the money. And surprisingly, they carried them to a forest in the high bush and executed all of them. This is the kind of person we had. This is why the women say they are praying this devil back to hell, because he was more like a devil.
Solomon, maybe if you don't mind hanging on to the microphone for a second, I have a question that perhaps maybe others know the answer. But so the war ended, and what is the state of things since then in Liberia, and how did it work out with President Sirleaf?
It was surprising to know that next month, October 11, we are having our general presidential election. From the peace talk in Ghana in 2003, there was an interim government that was set up because when Charles Taylor resigned, his vice president became the president. He served for only 2 months. When they set up the interim government in Ghana, they came to Liberia, and the peace plan gave grant for the disarmament, demobilization, and rehabilitation of the former soldiers, and also gave mandate for an election. It was an election that was held in 2005 that brought Madam Johnson into power for the first 6 years, and now we are going for our next election in October next month. Yeah.
And the peace has lasted since then?
Yeah, relatively, because the vice president just left from New York at the United Nations General Assembly, appealing to the United Nations to keep her presence in Liberia, because we went through almost 13 years of what we saw over there. It was not just 1 month. So the process of coming to stable peace is not just 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It will take time. So we are relatively in a peaceful state because some institutions have been rebuilt and relationship has been rebuilt, but it won't take a short time, it's a long time.
I'm sure it has to take generations, right? I mean, how do you, for it really to work its way out of the system? Other comments or questions? One thing I was curious about is whether, so this film was focused on the role that these women played, but I wonder, when this was all happening, to what degree people were aware of what these women were doing and felt like that was something very powerful and effective that was going on in the way that it seems here in the film.
I work with the Inter-Religious Council of Liberia, and this is a council that brings together the Christians and Muslims. And what you see the women were doing, the women were one part of the pressure group on the government for peace, and the Inter-Religious Council were religious leaders. Also in the process, the women were signatory to the peace plan in Accra. We were also a part. And the Inter-Religious Council of Liberia was the first group that started the peace process in 1990. The first peace conference was held in Sierra Leone, where we presented the peace plan to the ECOWAS leaders. Even the conference that was held in Accra, the international committee told us, they were fed up with Liberia because they have had conference. There's nothing fruitful coming out of the conferences. So it's like, they have turned their back. So it took the religious leaders. If we're Christian, you go to your Christian leaders and talk to them. If you're Muslim, you go to the Muslim leader and talk to them. We kept mobilizing the people around the world to look at Liberia again. It was when they initiated this peace the peace plan in Accra. So it's like while we were there, on the other side, the women on the other side. So there are lots of groups involved, but the women, they stood on real ground. The fee you saw them sitting on, the fee was not far from Charles Taylor's house. So he must, on his way to work, pass by them. So it was just strategic for them and for him also too. So it created that image that something was wrong in the country. So he had to stop to address it.
Fascinating. Yeah, Michael. You want to wait?
Question. All right.
In Accra, she asked what are the peace. Yeah, for now, we went through the TRC process, which is the Truth and Reconciliation process, for 2 years.
We're going to have to do this differently.
I'm sorry.
There's no way to get out of here.
For 2 years, the TRC process went on in Liberia, where people who committed serious crimes, serious offenses in the country, came out and confessed and asked for forgiveness. And the process even came to the United States and other parts of the world where there were perpetrators, there were people who were victims, and they said some things. Today, there's some semblance because of what people were able to come out to boldly say, "Oh, I have done wrong. Please forgive me." And we have opened our arms to embracing them, but the process of rehabilitation is still going on because it's not just out of a clear blue sky. So with our government in power now, with the various institution being built, there's some semblance of peace we are now experiencing. But it would need more time and more effort to really put us back to where we were before. Because when the war started in 1990, the American it wasn't an ambassador, but he was the American Deputy Secretary of State for African Affairs. He warned Liberia. He said, "This is a war that you have not experienced before. When you allow this war to reach in your capital, your country will go about 50 years. It's not just infrastructure development or destruction, but lives. To rebuild is not a small thing." So he warned us over and over again that this country will go about 50 years. So we are imagining from 50 years in building the process to come to the present reality. It's just difficult, but we are going through it little by little. This is why we were moved to come at SIT. I'm doing conflict transformation as my major to help the process. We have Liberians all over the world going to get trained to go back and to help for the development process in Liberia in the area aspect.
That's fantastic.
Solomon, why don't you hold that mic?
I'm going to give it to Michael first.
Yeah.
You did. Okay.
So I'm saying, Dan, your mic. So if
Yeah,
you're
no, I know.
Somebody, they'll pick that. I'm sorry for the inconvenience of the microphone.
Well, Charles Taylor is now in The Hague.
Oh, he is? He's being tried for what?
Yeah. When he left from Liberia, he went to Nigeria. He was there for something like 2 years. While leaving, trying to escape from where he was in Nigeria, he was arrested and taken back to Liberia, where the Liberian government turned over to the United Nations. So he's now in The Hague, going through his own trial. Yeah.
Claire, anything you wanted to add?
There was a program on the radio today, an interview with and I guess he has been a soldier. I think he fought in Vietnam, talking about a book that he's written about exactly how people come to this mindset. He was talking about how any human being brought up in a normal family is taught that it's wrong to kill, and yet you go in the army and you be trained to kill, and you go to Vietnam and your mindset is that these are not human beings. You have to have that mindset in order to do it. And he spoke of being in a village, and there was a young boy, maybe 12 or 14 years old, with a hand grenade about to throw it at him. And there he was, and he finally recognized that this was a human being and he had to kill him. A human being. And then they come home again and they've been trained to kill, and now they're back in the culture that tells them that it's wrong to kill. And it's just no easy trick to turn around. And of course those young boys were brainwashed, if you want to call it that.
What will really happen is, like, what happened in our own situation is this. These young kids were drugs. And they know that this is the only way they can really get, into that state. 1, 2, they try to dehumanize people, calling those who you're fighting against as dogs, calling one group monkey dog. So this was just the usual, way of identifying the one you're fighting against as a dog. So they went against them as just an animal, and it was so bad. There were some kids who, up to now, they are, losing their mind because of what they went through. These kids were really drugged by Taylor. That's the only way he can have control over them. It was terrible, very terrible.
Yeah, again, it's the same, it's, from one culture to the next. If you want to have war against somebody, they cannot be human beings. They're not. You call them something else. You call them some animal name.
And you teach people to hate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I am struck by how it was that it was the women. In those circumstances, and seeing how what was happening to the villages and the villagers, the women and children included, they were so indiscriminate, the soldiers were, no matter which side that they were on. I can't imagine what these women had gone through and how desperate they were that they actually took this action, because what guarantee would they have that they weren't going to be turned on? I think it's just really, it's really amazing, and it speaks to some kind of some kind of difference between men and women. It's okay for men to do this against men, but there's some sacredness that says you don't bring this to your women. Well, you did. Obviously they did to some degree, because there were rapes, and I'm sure that there were women and children that were killed, but they didn't touch these women particularly, and I find that truly, truly astounding, given the circumstances.
There's a point. Lehman told us a story about this lady who husband was killed before her, and more to it, there was some story that to even say out is it create trauma for someone who went through this process. Imagine a woman who is pregnant and you having kids arguing among themselves, debating among themselves to determine the sex of the child, and having this lady, open. These are the kind of things that the women went through. Imagine a woman who, having a kid, telling the woman to put, the baby in the mortar, to beat your own baby yourself in the mortar. There are points in life when you reach, you get so desperate, you say, look, I must take this action. Yeah. And this is what motivated them. So look, it's better we just die, because we are nothing again. And when they took that action, we saw how things went. They went through it. The worst way. Imagine a woman walking in the street with her baby. There's no water to drink, and she's giving her baby her spit just for survival. What exit is left again?
And I guess at some point it has to end somewhere. And I thought it was interesting, and I'm sure deliberate in a particular way on the part of the filmmakers to begin very early on There was the one woman talking about that moment with her child asking for a piece of a donut and she didn't have it. It just, I think that framed the whole, I think that framed what must have been behind the motivation for these women. At a certain point, you have nothing left to lose, absolutely nothing left to lose. And, you know, and the children, and the children are suffering. You know, why would you not? Why, you know, sorry, got emotional there.
The deep inside of women, there's this need to keep your children safe.
Yeah.
And when that gets violated, I mean, it's impossible not to listen and respond to that sense of violation.
Thank God for that. Thank God for a safety mechanism that kicks in at some point on some large-scale social level. Wow.
It's a really hard movie to watch, but thank you for...
Well, yeah, thank you. Boy, I wish they would send us some uplifting ones now and then. I think the next one about these two slam poets 2 weeks from now. But these are important too, you know, and I always leave here feeling like, whew, it was heavy, but I'm better off for having seen this and had a chance to talk with you all about it. Solomon Moyen, I want to thank you for being here tonight. Thank you. You deepened our appreciation and understanding of what we were watching greatly. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge with us. And thanks all of you. We have a lot of things going on here at the museum. I hope you'll come around often in the coming weeks. We have an opening reception this Saturday evening for a new Little Wolfcon pastel exhibit that's just gone up in the East Gallery. We have a talk next Thursday by Karen Kamenetsky, who's done these fiber tapestries in the back room. Lots going on. You can pick up a brochure on the way out or go to our website, and all the information is there. But thank you.